Hello everyone. Welcome to the first of many discussions about video games and other media. For this video, I want to talk about Genshin Impact and one of its biggest historical events, the Khaenri'ah disaster. Before I start, I'd like to say that I haven't seen any theories and videos that others have made. Everything that I say is based on my research and speculation. With that said, let's begin. 500 years before the game starts, a catastrophe took place affecting all of Teyvat. While we don't know the specifics about how or why it started, during that time, monsters from Khaenri'ah invaded and attacked the 7 nations. Each nation experienced its own cataclysm and suffered many casualties. Those who are well versed in mythology and have kept up with the in-game lore and history will already know that Khaenri'ah is based on Norse mythos. Taking a closer look, each nation's events represent elements of Ragnarok. Let's start with the most obvious reference, in Inazuma. During the Calamity, Rift Hounds were the main antagonizing force, acting as the advance guard and tearing through space to call reinforcements. One such example is in Tsurumi Island, where the Golden Wolf Lord resides. As you can see, wolves play a major role in Inazuma during the Khaenri'ah War, and it just so happens that there is a wolf mentioned in Ragnarok. Khaenri'ah, who bites off the right hand of Tyr, the god of war, as well as Odin, and eventually devours the sun. Next, let's take a look at Mondstadt. 500 years ago, Durin, the abyssal dragon, attacked the nation until the Volunteer opened his throat. However, as a result, he ingested Durin's poisonous blood, which corrupted his mind, allowing the Abyss Order to manipulate him. These events represent the battle between the thunder god Thor and the world serpent Jormungandr. Their battle ends with Thor slaying the serpent but soon succumbing to its venom, dying as well. In Liyue, the Millelith held back the abyss emerging from the depths of the chasm. Within lies the ruined serpent, which can be one of 2 references. The first case is Nidhogg, who resides and chews on the roots of the world tree, Yggdrasil. Doing a side-by-side comparison, Nidhogg will be the ruined serpent, and Yggdrasil is Irminsul, which we can find one of its roots within the main mining area of the chasm. Setting aside this information, the second possible reference is a more direct connection to Ragnarok. When fighting certain rune enemies, a serial code is shown on screen. Some of the letters in its name are an abbreviation for a reference in Norse mythology. The Aeon Blightdrake, for example, has the code GLFAF. The last 3 letters refer to Fafnir, the greedy dwarf turned dragon. The Ruined Serpent's code is SIGLP. The letters GLP may refer to Gleipnir, the binding used to restrain Fenrir until he breaks free during Ragnarok. Sumeru is admittedly difficult to pinpoint an exact reference, but here are a few possibilities. After the Calamity, Khaenri'ah, the illegitimate son of Clothar Alberich, transforms into a hilichurl and becomes the key figure in the soon-to-be Abyss Order's Loom of Fate operation. Meanwhile, in Norse mythology, the death of Baldur, Odin's son, is a sign that Ragnarok is coming. Khaenri'ah is most likely Genshin's parallel to Baldur, albeit with some slight differences between the two. Odin is known in a higher position of power compared to Clothar, but we do know from Kaya's note during the Hidden Strife event that the Alberich clan took over as regents when their king Irmin was incapable of ruling. Also, while Baldur's death is what leads to Ragnarok, Khaenri'ah's suffering was a result after the Khaenri'ah disaster. Now let's look at the information from Varukash's globe. When the Abyss came forth from Tanuki Hollow, the former Hydro Archon fell in battle trying to suppress it, and her body became the Amarita. During Ragnarok, there is a boat made of nails from the dead called Naglfar, carrying monsters into battle against the gods. In Genshin's case, the Naglfar would be the abyssal rift which monsters poured out from, and the ocean that the Naglfar sailed across will represent the Hydro Archon. Unless we learn more in the future, these are some of the possible connections to Ragnarok within Sumeru's history. Fontaine isn't fully released yet, but there are still clues we can glean at. According to the first volume of the History of the Decline and Fall of Lemuria, the nation had already experienced repeated submerging and rebuilding of civilizations by tsunamis and rainfalls. And for those who recall the end of the Archon quest, Fussalor's divinity dies in order for Neuvillette to regain his full authority, subsequently absolving the sins of Fontanians and averting the prophecy. This mirrors how Ragnarok ends, with the land eventually sinking and re-emerging from the sea, along with life being reborn in the world. Now we come to the last two nations, where information pertaining to their history is still blank. Fortunately, we can still make some guesses from the little we already know. Starting with Natlan, the nation of fire and war, both aspects which two major figures in Norse mythology are the personification of. As mentioned earlier, there is a god of war in Norse mythology named Tyr. In Genshin Impact's manga, Venti reveals the name of the Pyro Archon, Marada. Veterans of Hoyoverse will already know that some characters in Genshin Impact have a Honkai parallel. Marada is the last name of Himiko, a key figure in the series, who in Honkai Impact 3rd meets a tragic end. Whether this hints about Natlan's past or the Archon quest is still up for debate. Focusing on the fire aspect now, the Norse figure that best represents it is Surt, the flaming giant who leads his kin into battle during Ragnarok. According to Venti, the brain of Ymir, another giant in Norse mythology, formed the clouds of another world, which reflects the Norse creation myth, where his body is used to create Earth. We've already seen yokai, jinn, and other creatures across the various mythologies in the game, so there is a good possibility that we may also see giants in the future. At last we arrive at Snezhnaya. Most of our current knowledge comes from its military/political party, the Fatui. Its director, Piero, the Jester, was originally a royal mage from Khaenri'ah. If we consider his title and the fact that Khaenri'ah is based on Norse mythology, Piero is most likely a representation of Loki, the trickster god. Not only is Loki the father of Fenrir and Jormungandr, but he is also responsible for Baldur's death. According to the lore from the Pale Flame artifact, Piero attempted to stop King Ermin from ushering in a tide of divine wrath. The divine wrath refers to the Khaenri'ah disaster and the curse its people suffered. However, recall what we learned during the Archon interlude in version of Genesis. Piero ordered the Torre to infiltrate Inazuma, which led to the Mikage furnace incident, one of the main reasons why Scaramouche despised both the gods and humanity and later joined the Fatui. Because of this revelation, it's possible that Piero was involved in the reasons why the other Harbingers joined, and may have wanted the calamity to happen. There's one last detail about Ragnarok that we can analyze. Some versions of the tale say that two humans will survive and rebuild the world. The individuals that represent them in Genshin are Aether and Lumine, the main characters of the game. Not only are they from a different world, they've suffered little to no losses, as the sibling that the player controls only wakes up until after Khaenri'ah was destroyed. Meanwhile, our sibling, while living in the nation for some time, seemingly wasn't cursed like Clothar or Caribert. And that's everything we currently know in-game correlating to the events of Ragnarok. Mind you that speculation of Fontaine and the remaining two nations can be disproven in the future. These are simply my thoughts and predictions from experiencing the game myself and trying to understand the developer's point of view when using examples of our culture and history to create it. Thank you for watching and listening to what I had to say. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe so you can be notified of future discussion videos and other content. Follow me here on YouTube or Twitter, and until then, take care.